November 10, 1985. Bear Brook State Park, Allenstown, New Hampshire. A hunter moves through dense woods near the edge of the forest, far from any trail. Something catches his eye. A rusted 55-gallon metal drum, tipped over, half buried beneath fallen leaves. He approaches. The barrel is heavy. Old. He opens it. Inside, wrapped in plastic, are the skeletal remains of a woman and a young girl. Their identities are completely unknown. No missing persons reports match. The case goes cold. 15 years pass. Then in 2000, investigators return to the same spot and make a discovery that sends chills through every officer on scene. Another barrel. Just 100 feet away. 2 more young girls inside. 4 victims total. No names. No answers. It would take cutting-edge DNA technology, relentless investigators, and over 3 decades to uncover a truth so horrifying, it still haunts America today. If you're ready for this story, hit that subscribe button right now. It was deer hunting season. November 10, 1985. 2 brothers walked through Bear Brook State Park in Allenstown, New Hampshire, moving through thick woods far from the main trail. One of them noticed something out of place. A 55-gallon metal drum, tipped on its side, partially hidden beneath leaves and debris near an abandoned burned-down store. He moved closer. The barrel was heavy, rusted, old. When he looked inside, his stomach dropped. A foot. Human remains. He stumbled back, calling for his brother. They didn't touch anything else. They left immediately and reported it to authorities. Allenstown police arrived within the hour. Inside the barrel, wrapped tightly in plastic, were the skeletal remains of a woman and a young girl. The woman appeared to be between 23 and 33 years old. The girl was estimated to be around 5 to 11 years old. Both bodies were severely decomposed, almost completely skeletonized. Medical examiners determined both had died from blunt force trauma to the head. Someone had beaten them to death. The bodies had been dismembered, carefully wrapped, and stuffed into the drum. Investigators estimated they'd been dead for years, possibly since the late 1970s or early 1980s. But here's where the case hit a wall. No one knew who they were. Police checked every missing persons report from the 1970s and 1980s. Nothing matched. Forensic technology in 1985 was limited. DNA testing was still in its infancy. Dental records didn't lead anywhere. Facial reconstructions were created, circulated through media, shown across the country. No one came forward. The woman and child were buried in a local Allenstown cemetery. Their tombstone read, "Here lies the mortal remains known only to God of a woman aged 23 to 33 and a girl child aged 8 to 10. Their slain bodies were found on November 10, 1985, in Bear Brook State Park. May their souls find peace in God's loving care." The case went cold. What's the weather like where you are today? The case sat cold for 15 years. The woman and child remained buried in that Allenstown cemetery, their names still unknown. Investigators moved on to other cases. The file gathered dust in storage. But forensic science didn't stand still. Throughout the 1990s, DNA technology advanced at a rapid pace. What seemed impossible in 1985 was becoming routine by the mid-1990s. Labs could now extract DNA from bones, teeth, and hair samples with increasing accuracy. Cold case units across America began reopening old files, submitting evidence for new testing. Families across the country continued their own searches. Missing persons cases from the 1970s and 1980s remained open. Mothers, fathers, siblings, and children held on to hope that their loved ones might still be found. Some never stopped looking. In New Hampshire, a new generation of investigators took interest in the Bear Brook case. State Police Trooper John Cody became determined to solve it. He believed the answers were still out there, buried somewhere in those woods or hidden in evidence that hadn't been properly examined. In the spring of 2000, Cody organized a thorough search of the original crime scene area. He wanted to make sure nothing had been missed. What they found would shock everyone involved. May 9, 2000. State Trooper John Cody organized a meticulous search of the original crime scene area in Bear Brook State Park. He believed something had been missed back in 1985. His instincts were right. Just 100 feet from where the first barrel had been found 15 years earlier, investigators discovered another 55-gallon metal drum. Same brand. Same condition. Same horrifying contents. Inside were the remains of 2 more young girls. Both had been wrapped in plastic, dismembered, and stuffed into the barrel just like the first 2 victims. Forensic analysis revealed both girls had died from blunt force trauma to the head. They'd been dead for roughly the same amount of time as the woman and child from 1985, likely killed between 1977 and 1981. The realization hit investigators hard. These barrels had been sitting in those woods, side by side, for over 2 decades. 4 victims total. All unidentified. All murdered by the same person. How had they missed the second barrel in 1985? The question haunted everyone involved in the case. The area had been searched, but not thoroughly enough. Technology in 1985 wasn't what it is today. Resources were limited. The second barrel had simply been overlooked, hidden beneath years of leaves and undergrowth. Now, with 4 victims instead of 2, the case took on an entirely new dimension. This wasn't just a double homicide. This was the work of a serial killer. Someone who had the time, the privacy, and the cold calculation to murder 4 people, transport their bodies to a remote location, and hide them in barrels like discarded trash. But the same problem remained. No one knew who these victims were. No missing persons reports matched. Dental records led nowhere. And despite advances in forensic science, investigators still couldn't identify them. If you're finding this case as chilling as I am, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started, and trust me, this story takes a dark turn. By the early 2000s, DNA technology had evolved dramatically. What seemed impossible in 1985 was now routine. Scientists could extract usable DNA from degraded bones, teeth, and even rootless hair shafts. Cold case investigators across America began submitting old evidence for reanalysis. In New Hampshire, the Bear Brook case became a priority. Forensic teams extracted DNA from all 4 victims and began testing. The first breakthrough came quickly. DNA analysis revealed the woman and the oldest child from the first barrel were biologically related. Mother and daughter. Then came the second revelation. The youngest child from the second barrel was also biologically related to the woman. Another daughter. But the middle child, the third girl found in the second barrel, showed no biological connection to any of the other 3 victims. How could that be? 4 bodies, dumped in the same location, killed around the same time, but one child completely unrelated to the others. The mystery deepened. Isotope testing provided another clue. Scientists analyzed the victims' bones and teeth to determine where they'd lived during their lifetimes. The results showed all 4 had spent time in the southwestern United States before coming to New Hampshire. California, possibly Arizona, or Texas. But even with this information, investigators still couldn't identify them. They ran the DNA through every database available. Nothing matched. No missing persons reports aligned with the evidence. The case remained cold for another decade. Then in the mid-2010s, a new breakthrough emerged. Genealogical DNA. Companies like Ancestry and 23andMe had created massive consumer databases of genetic information. People were uploading their DNA to find relatives, trace their heritage, build family trees. Investigators began using these databases to solve cold cases. In 2017, genetic genealogist Barbara Ray Venter was brought onto the Bear Brook case. She uploaded the victims' DNA profiles into public genealogy databases and started building family trees, tracing distant relatives, searching for connections. At the same time, a librarian in Connecticut named Rebecca Heath was doing her own research. She'd been following the Bear Brook case for years, searching online for any clues that might help identify the victims. What time is it where you're watching? In 2017, genetic genealogist Barbara Ray Venter and librarian Rebecca Heath worked independently on tracing the victims' identities. Heath had been following the case for years, combing through online missing persons forums and message boards. She found an old post from 2000 on an Ancestry.com forum. Someone was looking for Marlies Honeychurch and her daughter Sarah McWatters. They'd been missing since 1978. Heath reached out to the original poster and learned something critical. Marlies was last seen in La Puente, California, around Thanksgiving 1978. She'd left with her 2 daughters and her boyfriend. A man whose name kept coming up. Bob Evans. Ray Venter, working with DNA from the victims, had been building family trees through genealogical databases. Her work confirmed what Heath had discovered. The woman and 2 of the girls were Marlies Honeychurch, Marie Vaughn, and Sarah McWatters. All 3 had vanished from California in 1978. But who was Bob Evans? Investigators dug into his background. What they found was chilling. Bob Evans wasn't his real name. It was an alias. One of many. The man known as Bob Evans had lived in Manchester, New Hampshire, in the early 1980s. He worked as an electrician at a local mill. He was arrested 3 times in 1980 for minor crimes, writing bad checks, theft, and illegally diverting electricity. During one of those arrests, a woman named Elizabeth Evans was listed as his wife. Investigators believed Elizabeth Evans was actually Marlies Honeychurch, but they could never confirm it. Evans had used other names too. In 1985, he was arrested in California under the name Curtis Kimball for drunk driving and child endangerment. The following year, living in Scotts Valley, California, he went by Gordon Jensen and abandoned a 5-year-old girl at an RV park. In 1988, he was arrested again as Jerry Mockerman for driving a stolen vehicle. By the late 1990s, he resurfaced as Larry Vanner. Fingerprint analysis connected all these identities to the same man. Curtis Kimball was Gordon Jensen. Gordon Jensen was Bob Evans. Bob Evans was Larry Vanner. They were all the same person. A chameleon. By 2017, investigators had identified the victims. But they still didn't know who killed them. That's when San Bernardino County Detective Peter Headley and genetic genealogist Barbara Ray Venter turned their focus to the killer himself. They wanted to know who Bob Evans really was. Ray Venter uploaded DNA from the crime scene evidence to genealogical databases and began building family trees, tracing distant relatives back through generations. The process was painstaking. She analyzed thousands of genetic connections, searching for patterns, looking for a name that fit. In August 2017, she found it. The man who called himself Bob Evans, Curtis Kimball, Gordon Jensen, and Larry Vanner was actually Terry Rasmussen. Born in Denver, Colorado, in 1943. He'd been married, had 4 children, and lived what appeared to be a normal life until 1974, when he simply disappeared. His family hadn't seen or heard from him in over 40 years. To confirm the identification, investigators reached out to Rasmussen's living children. One of them, his son, agreed to provide a DNA sample. The results came back positive. Terry Rasmussen was the Bear Brook killer. Investigators now had a full timeline. Rasmussen met Marlies Honeychurch in California in the late 1970s. They moved to New Hampshire together, where he called himself Bob Evans. Sometime between 1978 and 1981, he murdered Marlies, her 2 daughters, and his own biological daughter. He stuffed their bodies into barrels and dumped them in Bear Brook State Park. Then he disappeared, moving on to the next identity, the next state, the next victim. Rasmussen died in a California prison on December 28, 2010. He'd been serving a sentence for killing his girlfriend, Soon Jun, in 2002. He never knew investigators were closing in on him. He never confessed to the Bear Brook murders. He took the truth to his grave. This case haunted investigators for over 30 years. If you think they deserve recognition for never giving up, drop a like on this video. In 2017, investigators already knew the fourth victim was Rasmussen's biological daughter through DNA testing. But they didn't know her name. She was simply called the middle child. Estimated to be between 2 and 4 years old at the time of her death. Brown hair. A slight overbite. A gap between her front teeth. For years, forensic artists created facial reconstructions. Her image was circulated across the country. No one came forward. No missing persons reports matched. It was as if she'd never existed. Rasmussen had never mentioned her to anyone. Not to his wives. Not to his other children. Not to any of the women he'd abandoned across the country. Investigators believed her mother was also dead, likely another victim buried somewhere, still undiscovered. But they had no idea who she was either. The case remained frozen. 2 nameless victims connected by DNA but lost to time. In January 2024, the New Hampshire State Police Cold Case Unit partnered with the DNA Doe Project. They uploaded the child's DNA to genealogical databases and began the painstaking process of tracing her ancestry. Genetic genealogist Jennifer Randolph and her team worked for 18 months, building family trees, following lines back through generations. They found a match. A couple born in the 1870s. From there, they traced forward and discovered a 2005 obituary for one of the couple's great-great-great-granddaughters. The obituary mentioned she was survived by a daughter. Pepper Reed. Born in 1952. Originally from Texas. Investigators searched for records of Pepper Reed. Nothing after the 1970s. She'd vanished. But once they had her name, they found something else. A birth certificate from Orange County, California. A baby girl born in 1976. Ray Rasmussen. Parents listed, Terry Rasmussen and Pepper Reed. On September 5, 2025, DNA testing with a surviving family member confirmed it. The middle child finally had a name. Ray Rasmussen. She was between 2 and 4 years old when her father murdered her. He stuffed her body in a barrel alongside another child and left her in the woods like garbage. There are no known photographs of Ray. Her face exists only in forensic reconstructions. A life erased before it truly began. Terry Rasmussen didn't just kill 4 people in New Hampshire. His trail of destruction stretched across the entire United States, spanning more than 3 decades. Every time investigators thought they'd mapped his movements, another victim surfaced. Another alias. Another state. After leaving his first wife and 4 children in Arizona in 1974, Rasmussen disappeared. He resurfaced in Texas in 1975 under his real name, working on oil rigs in Houston and Beaumont. That's where he met Pepper Reed. She was 24 years old. By Christmas 1975, she was pregnant with his child. Her family never saw her again after that holiday. In 1978, he was in California as Terry Rasmussen when he met Marlies Honeychurch. By late 1978, he'd moved with her and her daughters to New Hampshire, now calling himself Bob Evans. He worked as an electrician at Wambach Mill in Manchester. Between 1978 and 1981, he murdered Marlies, her 2 daughters, and his own daughter Ray. Then he vanished again. In November 1981, he left New Hampshire with Denise Bowden and her 6-month-old daughter, Dawn. Denise disappeared. Rasmussen kept Dawn for 5 years, calling her Lisa, claiming to be her father. In 1986, he abandoned her at an RV park in California, this time using the name Gordon Jensen. Dawn survived. She was adopted. She grew up not knowing her real identity until 2016. Between 1990 and 2002, Rasmussen's whereabouts remain mostly unknown. But in 2002, living as Larry Vanner in Richmond, California, he murdered his girlfriend Eun Soon Jun. He buried her body in the basement under cat litter. That's the crime that finally put him in prison. All 4 victims from the barrels have been identified. Marlies Honeychurch, Sarah McWaters, Marie Vaughn, and Ray Rasmussen. After 40 years, they finally have their names back. Their families can finally mourn them properly. But the case isn't truly closed. Pepper Reed, Ree's mother, has not been seen since the late 1970s. Investigators believe she's another victim of Terry Rasmussen. Her body has never been found. No one knows where she is or what happened to her. The investigation into her disappearance remains active. There's also Denise Bowden, a woman last seen with Rasmussen in Manchester, New Hampshire, in November 1981. She disappeared with her 6-month-old daughter, Dawn. Rasmussen kept Dawn for 5 years before abandoning her. Denise has never been found. She's presumed to be another victim. Investigators believe there are more victims. Rasmussen lived under multiple identities for over 3 decades. He moved from state to state, leaving destruction in his wake. How many women did he kill? How many children? The full truth died with him in 2010. This case shows that even the coldest cases can be solved with determination and science. If this story moved you, share it with someone who loves true crime. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into cases like this.